welcome to all our viewers on IKTV channel 112. Today we are basically highlighting some Vincy talent. And our first, should I say talent, on Vincy Hightlight is none other than Miss Meliny Hoyte of Spring Village. She is not just a student at the UE, but she's a teacher at the Petit Bedell Secondary School. And she is a poet. I know it's strange to hear poetry in St. Vincent, in Vincy, but yes, they exist and they're very talented, and should I say they're few and far between? No?
I wouldn't say so. I think there are some that's undiscovered.
Definitely, and that's what this platform is all about, basically giving a center stage to young and upcoming artists who want an open door to just come in and display their talent. So, Meliny, Miss Meliny Hoyte, tell us about yourself.
As Jillian rightly said, my name is Meliny Hoyte. I'm from Spring Village. I am a teacher. I love kids. I love teaching. And I'm also a UE student. I really love the arts. Sometimes think that it's underrated. I love poetry. I love anything that has to do with writing and acting and those things. So that's pretty much I can say about myself.
What brought you into poetry? Because you said anything artistic, writing. Are you into music, dance? Are you into art?
I used to love art, but I stopped following up on it.
Oh.
Yes, and I also used to sing, but I don't practice anymore. But I would listen to music, and I don't know, I like all sorts of music, and some people would laugh at me for that because my music style is not just one, and I'd like the weirdest type of music. Just because I love the arts, I'd look at it, and I'd try to say what instrument I'm hearing.
That's because you have eclectic taste, so don't worry about that. You know, I'm the same way. There are different genres that would connect with me, but there are those that, you know, have their time and place and moods. I think that's what people don't understand about music, and not just music, you know. Sometimes we're inspired by the weirdest things, but at the right time, and it has the right effect at that point in time. Now, poetry. How did you get into it? Is it like, you know what, I think I'm good at this, and this is something I'd like to expand on, I'd like some, because do you have any platform here? I don't think there's any platform for poets here in Vincy, or any kind of school, or...
No, I don't think so, but I once went to a club. It was called Believers Club. I don't see it happening anymore. Due to COVID, it had shut down. But that was the first time I've had a platform for poetry. Besides that, I was in Passing College, the Performing Arts Society. So we had the Drummer Fest, the annual Drummer Fest that we went to. I participated in year 1, and in year 2, I was the head of the poetry division.
Okay.
So I think that's as much as we can get to platforms, but I still think that poets are so, I don't know, people don't see it. And I even have a poem that captured the fact that people don't see poetry in a good way, but it captures a lot. So we don't have that platform. It's normally singing or dancing or modeling.
Or drama.
Or drama, even though I love the arts and I can act as well. But I think poetry needs more push. It needs a better and a bigger platform.
Do you think we should start, like you started in college, do you think we should start expanding in college, or should we start in secondary school? I don't think there's enough emphasis put on it, whether it's poetry, whether it's art, drawing, you know, those things, opening up those platforms for students. In school, it's either agricultural science, it's either business. When you have arts, it's not necessarily drawing, you know, or painting. It's performing arts most of the time. I know my son encountered that situation where he signed up for arts in college, but it wasn't the art that, you know, he was doing, because he's not just a great painter, but an artist. So he was very surprised when it was performing arts, drama, and things like those. But what would you like to see change, especially in the college division when it comes to arts?
Well, within the college division, when it comes to arts, I think that there's a good platform already with PASS. But to see it expanding, I think that it should have, as you said, the division where it deals with visual arts and those different type of arts, because there are a lot of things that can be considered as the arts. I also think that because we have, well, in college there are art students, they should be able to, do projects around the community, not only within college,
Uh-huh.
and the other organizations or whatever in SVG that deals with, it doesn't even have to deal with arts. It can be, okay, today I want to take PASS to the secondary school. I think they've done that before.
Okay.
Or today we're having a celebration. Maybe we can take some of the divisions to do a performance. So I think people need to do that more, because in St. Vincent, when you hear about the arts, a lot of people, it doesn't amaze them, it doesn't excite them.
Definitely, because when you hear about the arts, it's just basically drama, and the drama and dance, and that is it. But it would be so awesome if we have a more hands-on approach, like you would say, take the students out, even if it's putting on an event, just to give them a platform, just to showcase, that there's more or different levels to art than we're being shown. But in regards to your poetry, tell me some that you've performed before and one that really spoke to you.
Well, let me see. I've performed a few before, but I thought that all spoke to me. But one that really spoke to me is one. And I don't consider it as long or as, should I say, interesting, because all the others, but it captured what poetry is like to me. Because I would speak about poetry to someone and someone would be like, oh, poetry is boring and Vincentians don't do those stuff. So that one really spoke to me, and the ones that I write about cultural experiences, I like those because they capture a lot of things that we fail to capture, or the ones that I write about our country in general.
Okay. So most of your poems, they're inspired by like things happening around you, various situations you find yourself in.
Most of my poems are inspired by pretty much anything.
Okay, so we're gonna have Melanie do one of her favorite poems for us today.
Okay. So, because we have National Heroes Day, which is coming up on Monday, I decided to do one on Heroes Day.
Okay.
Okay. So it is entitled Gary Funa, Our Exquisite People.
Let me just interrupt you. Now, how is it every National Heroes Day you only hear Gary Funa? We don't hear Kali Nago.
That's actually included inside of
Okay.
my poem.
Because every National Heroes Day, you rarely hear the mention of the Kalinago people, and which we will change. Watch and see coming up here on IKTV. We will definitely change that. Most of the times, you hear Gary Funa, Gary Funa. I don't want to make it separate because we're all one. But of course, just like the people in Bequia the people in the Grenadine Islands who feel a bit separated from mainland St. Vincent, I'm sure the Kalinago tribe would feel, only where people only talk about Gary Funa, Gary Funa, Gary Funa. But we are all one people. But nevertheless, start with your poem. I just had to highlight that.
I understand the movement. Gary Funa, Gary Funa. Our exquisite descent of hybrid people, all the many different races that we come from. And proud am I to say that I belong to the descent in the Caribbean. Carib is the language of our people, a little bit of Arawak, Kalinago, French, English, Spanish, and even African to spice up the pot. The beautiful islands in the archipelago we live in, called the Caribbean, was derived from our name. Mr. Columbus thought he discovered us. But, in fact, we were here before him. Ain't that a false claim? The people settled and made our island their home. Sadly, ownership was not their own. In the 1970s, they began to take our territories as if it were theirs. Then they claimed the lands for a good deal of years. But within all those years, we fought for our freedom through blood, sweat, and tears. We created our own culture from food to festivities to everyday clothing wears. Blood of a warrior, Chatier the chief, Black Carib Garifuna as you please. Captured by the British like they all have ownership, stick nonsense, regain leadership. They live among the Caribbean coast, bell of freedom, bell of honor, while stars that oversprinkle all the heavens rejoice. What a liquefied feeling, tears and love for our ancestors, the freedom to pursue our future, the freedom to develop our own future. Garifuna, Garifuna, where we are and who we are today.
Awesome. You heard it. Now, I have to say, it was on point. Um, do you think, I think there's a serious misconception out there, especially for people who are not into poetry, to automatically assume that poetry has to rhyme every line. You know, it has to rhyme. What can you do to basically give us a brief outline of what poetry entails of? If somebody, for our audience who's watching, would like to get into it.
Poetry doesn't necessarily have to rhyme. As a matter of fact, it does not have to rhyme. I've done many poetry pieces before that doesn't rhyme. It should have rhythm, however. I think that poetry should have rhythm. But sometimes they don't, and it isn't necessary. Personally, I like mine to have rhythm. And rhyming does not always mean rhythm.
Okay.
So poetry is, to me, what you make it. Because there's a type of poem called free verse. That is what I normally do. We have short poems, we have haiku and all those stuff. But for me, poetry is what you make it, and poetry is always all around us, in music, in what we read. Even when we speak every day, we might say something poetic and we don't even notice.
Ah, I noticed.
This piece is entitled Tell a Vision. How naive can we be to ignore the power of television? The screens that we take for granted, the center of our addiction. So please excuse my superstition if I might say that Hollywood is not just imagination and fiction, but rather a center for subliminal motivation, futuristic information, and tomorrow's prediction. Tell a vision. Shh. Let me tell you a not so longer secret. Have you ever heard of The Simpsons? Season 11, the previous presidential selection in the America's nation. That was their very own prediction. And what about now? The 1993's foreshadowing of the COVID-19 pandemic and hornets infestation. So please excuse me again, but I have to laugh. Did you know that Netflix already had its own prediction? Yes, of the COVID-19 pandemic that is striking the world's nations. Keep up with me, because these other televisions are rather scary. Scrub visions on the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden, spooks vision on the London subway bombing, the lone gunman's foreshadowing of the 9/11, and the famous Jetsons television of flat-screen televisions. As you can clearly see, foreshadowings beyond the vision of any Baptist man. Yes, I wouldn't just sit down and do some contemplating, but I'd pay close attention and take warning. So please excuse me if I go out on a verge. Don't be shocked if there's yet to be a purge.
I honestly think in schools, just to have that diversity and to not just for learning, but for our culture, it is something that we should definitely put to the forefront, because I'm sure there are musicians who would tell you that they connect. Poetry and music, writing, everything, it connects. There's a connection there. And if we can give that platform, because I'm sure there are people thinking, why would we, why, you know, like you said, why would we want to get into poetry? Why would we want to put it in schools? You know, but there's a connection between poetry, music, and writing and literature. You know, we need to invest in our culture because, for instance, I am sure there are or there aren't a lot of written poetry here, local written poetry for our Vincentian culture, from our Vincentian people. Am I correct? Because we have a few, and I think most of them are way above your generation, right? So what we should do is kind of nourish the young artists that are coming up, and make a platform for them to hold on to, and to basically, elevate themselves.
I understand. And I think when people speak about schools, normally they talk about secondary and college.
I think you should start primary.
But primary, and that is where you've asked the question about how did I get interested in poetry, and that is where it started, from primary school. So I think we need to push it, and sometimes Vincentians have a culture of, if I am not doing it, or I don't see certain people doing it, then I don't want to do it. So I think that pushing it would help us to break out of the culture.
Okay, you guys don't know this. I didn't know it until recently, but Meliny Hoyte is from Spring Village, and I have roots in Spring Village. Are you of Garifuna or Kalina descent? Okay, well, I am, and it doesn't really matter, because I love your poetry. Do you remember the first poem you wrote, the very first one?
I don't remember what it is exactly, but it is making me laugh, because my father, he used to sail. So I was in probably grade 1 or grade 2, and I'd always have poetry books from when I was a baby, like those baby poems and nursery rhymes
and stuff like that.
Yes. So I used to write him poems when he was going back to sail, or well, when I was in primary school, we used to still write letters. So I'd write a letter, or when email and stuff came in, I'd write an email, and that's how I actually got into poetry. And I found that I just loved writing.
Alrighty. I have a son who I think that's what he spends most of his time doing. He writes. When he's not writing, he is critiquing work, or publishing something, and he does it mostly online, but he's also an artist. And I'm always encouraging him to put himself out there and really think, what's the word I'm looking for? Think a little bit bigger. Now, I'm sure you have more than 5 poems. Have you ever thought about publishing anything, even if it's a booklet? Do you have enough to do a book? It would be so awesome to see, young people just put their work out there. You'd be surprised. In the States, there are children who are 14, 15, who are millionaires just by taking that one little step and putting themselves out there. Have you ever thought about publishing your work?
I have. Sometimes I have setbacks, but I have.
What's some of the major setbacks for you?
There's no platform in St. Vincent. I don't think that we have platforms for that. And sometimes, besides my busy schedule, I don't see it. Well, in this country, people don't really study or pay attention to poetry, so that's mainly what I look at.
So it's not something you can do on your own, like
it is.
Is there a publishing house here that you know of?
I don't know.
You know what I would do? I would put my work together. Get an artist, and if you can draw, my son is into animation also, right? You get somebody to do the illustrations for you, whether it's just on the cover, and put something together on your own and find some way. I don't know, but I think a lot of talent goes unrecognized because of that, because we are looking for an avenue in which to put it out there. I think more artists should try and create their own avenue. So that would be my encouragement to you.
And that is why I have a poetry page on Instagram, and I also post some Melody.
Melody?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. It's so cute. It's sweet.
And I also post some spoken word on my personal Instagram.
Okay. you know what I would love to see happen? Like people in the entertainment sector. There are a lot of business like restaurants and different clubs have an open mic night. You know, do you know anybody in that sector? I think somebody needs to start doing something. It doesn't just have to be poetry, but something that we could add on to, you know, the entertainment sector on a whole. Because basically, if it's not clubbing, it's what? Besides going out and
It's always
clubbing.
fitting or
Exactly.
clubbing or something.
So we need, somebody needs to start doing something, in my opinion. Hopefully, somebody viewing this program, somebody who has the different avenues and opportunity to start something would hear and connect.
You know, sometimes I find it funny when we have shows and stuff, we'd have somebody performing and normally it'll be a dance or a song. I don't see the other acts. There's many ideas within my head. I can't do everything alone. I try to push it, sometimes encourage people to go or write my own things, but there's actually people out there who can help us to have a better platform. I have ideas, but who are you going to pitch those ideas to? So who is going to come and help us? One person can only do so much.
Very true. Very true. But I'm sure with some collaboration, you know, you'll get there. Time will tell. Guys, thank you. Melanie, thank you so much. Any other handles that you want to give out? Or you just on, we can find your work on YouTube or just Instagram or?
Instagram, I have some on my personal page, and the poetry page, as I said, Melitry.
Okay. So if you want to connect, you heard it right here. This is the beautiful Meliny Hoyte, Miss Meliny Hoyte, our very own poet right here in Vincy. If there's anyone out there looking for a platform to showcase your talent and art, you can contact us, IKTV channel 112. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
I once told someone about poetry and they told me it was lame. I wondered if I was misunderstood because poetry is the baddest in the game. With words formed so perfectly, fire even forgot it had a flame. And things a normal conversation couldn't name, poetry came to artistically explain. So if you don't know anything about poetry, don't make a false claim. Let the poets do their things, don't bring on yourself shame. Now you see this thing called poetry, it holds a special type of rain. It's a special type of feeling, yes, dopamine. So if you're gonna talk about poetry, don't complain. You might learn a thing or two, if not, stay in your lane.